Panel is going to be moderated by Joe, and again, we're featuring two different areas that we have employed some of these tactics in already, welding and healthcare. And these are live, ongoing examples of what we're doing to avoid the workforce desert. So thanks, Joe.
Some of us have to tip the mic down a little bit. So we have other talents, but height, maybe not. So thanks for having me. I actually had the chance to do the keynote, or got a chance to speak last year. And as we talked about the development of the conference this year, it was exciting to hear it. And I didn't know, I just came over from Pine City. I had to be at the college this morning and didn't know who would be here. I thought it might be 30 of us sitting around a couple of tables and doing that. So kudos to you, and I don't know if we have any Vasa awards or something we can give you on the way out for trekking through the snow today, but it's always an exciting time for those of us that live here in Mora or grew up, have been in this region for a long time, because this is such a special weekend for people to get together, and it's an international event, and I think it is important, just like today's conference, to get together and talk about what's going on, because you realize it's a big world out there, and there's challenges across the board, across the United States, and for sure in our region and across Minnesota for workforce. And not always just workforce, meaning we just need somebody, a body. It's really about the right kind of skills aligned to the right kind of environment with the right kind of employer. And so I was happy to have the chance to come talk, because I think there's a lot going on in East Central Minnesota that we're proud of. And so most of us, as I look around the room, I think either are in this area or spend some time or familiar with it. So I think there's a lot of things that we should take credit for as a region. There's having the chance to have worked in the metro area for a long time, there's a lot going on down there too, but I think something is special when you're in a rural environment and people have the sense to take what can be limited resources, put them together to make something bigger. And so we're going to have a chance to meet some of our panelists who have participated in that or benefited from it or contributed to it. So just quickly, I wanted to walk through a little bit. I'm not getting that well. So just again, I want to talk about a couple things. The first part of the session today is really about our Women in Welding program. And Heidi and Chris, who are here, we're here, are really the drivers of it. So they're in the back, and maybe you've had a chance to meet with them or work with them. This was an initiative that we started a few years ago. Have you go up one more, Mark? Slide. But it was an initiative that we started about 5 years ago, and we'll get into some more of the details. And as I segue into that, just a little bit, if you're not familiar or haven't heard me talk about it, Pine Technical and Community College, where I'm the president, I've been the president since 2015. We were founded in 1965, so if you haven't been over there recently, we continue to change and evolve. We serve about 3,000 students a year, and I know my friend and colleague Kent Hansen was here this morning, so if you were here for that part, talked about Anoka Ramsey. We're very fortunate in this region that we have, of course, all the online offerings, but you have two very good colleges, different colleges, with our focus heavily in the technical areas. But we're added the community college mission back in 2014. So we're a combined institution, as we're referred to, and the Cambridge campus, which tends to focus more on liberal arts and transfer and nursing, very different. So there's great options in this region. I was told that there was a comment this morning about lowest tuition. There's always that argument. So we use the term that we are the lowest cost institution, because when you include fees and tuition, there's no better value in the state than Pine Technical and Community College. And again, Anoka Ramsey and Pine Technical and Community College are just really within like $50, few bucks a year. So we're very fortunate, affordable, high quality in this region. Some of our notable program areas are cybersecurity, welding, machine tooling, again, a lot of those historical trades areas. And then we've continued to add things in our, like automation systems. Our applied engineering program is starting in the fall. We have an EMT program that just started up in January, and then our transfer degrees. So student-to-teacher ratio is about 1 to 17. So for students that are coming from our smaller high schools or just our rural high schools, it's going to feel like maybe their high school did in that sense. So if you need shop time, if you need time on a machine, there's no better place to get it. We're one of the smallest standalone colleges in the state of Minnesota. And we are part of the Minnesota state system, so you can get a storefront, you can go to a small college, get to know your teachers, know the president, the staff there, the faculty very well, but you're also part of the Minnesota state system. And so we're connected to St. Cloud State, and we talked about Anoka Ramsey or Century College and all those other places that you might think about transferring to or transferring from. So the Women in Welding program I started to mention was started in 2014. We received some DEED funding, so we had some folks from DEED here today, and there's a lot of different, I think they were, yeah, Della was here. So we've got folks that do different things right here in front from DEED, but this was a grant that Prosperity the Pathway grant, I believe, was the initial funding pool. And so our issue that we were trying to resolve was how do we get more people into the workforce? And of course, with a limited number of people in a rural environment, we don't have really high growth. We've got new people moving to the area, but we're not in a dramatically high growing area. So our interest was trying to get those folks that were here aligned with the skills to those employer needs. And one of those areas was in welding. And of course, non-traditional participants are women in welding or technical careers. And so that's always an area of interest for us. How do we get more men to go into nursing? How do we get more women to go into manufacturing? Because we need everybody involved, and we want to make sure everybody has an equal chance and an opportunity to prosper in those trades. So just a background, I got to tell you that when we first set off on this journey, I think there were some doubters and people that probably thought we were a little crazy, like how, women don't become welders at the same rate that men do, and how are you going to get this many women to go into this training program? And I think, Chris and Heidi and all of us that were working on this, as we said, well, it doesn't mean we're not going to try. And so we set off. We got a couple of phone calls back, like, you really think you're going to do, our original number was 70 some, I think. Yep, we're going to do it. Here's the plan. And we came up with that. Well, in the end, we were able to have 84 female participants in that program. And so it was very, very effective. I think we got calls afterwards that said, how are you doing this? And a lot of this was the dedication and the connection. We recognized that people were talking to other people and saying that, if this was a good program to go into. It's a type of work that you could be successful in, and you had the skills once you were done with the program. There were jobs available, benefits available. All those things are important to all of us. We worked with high schools in some cases, in historically, and you're going to hear a little bit about maybe a program that we had a few years ago, but one of the issues that we had was lab capacity. So did we have the technical training space, if we were going to train this many students, that allowed us to offer the program at a time that was conducive to people? They have kids and transportation challenges, and so we couldn't just do it on the weekends or only at night. It needed to be at different times and really meet the need of those participants. And so we partnered with high schools in some cases and offered sessions. We went out and we made sure that our curriculum was aligned to the industry, so when people were done, they had enough training to get started, and that it led towards preparing people for credentials or certifications. We worked on things, making sure that if students started off in the term we would use as hour-based or non-credit programming, that would prepare them for some sort of pathway, and that's maybe an extension of the story, but we've now started up a credit-based diploma. So I think it's about 30 credits. So anybody can come to the college now and do a 1-year credit-based if that's what your interest is. We still offered some of the hour-based, but this was really an entry point for folks. We also wanted to make sure that if they were doing that, it was going to stack or tie to the credit-based program. So we're starting to see now some of those participants in this program are coming back and are back in our credit-based program because they want to take more and continue to move up in their career and earn higher wages. So we talked about that. We also getting just job search assistance. And so for folks that maybe don't know anybody in the industry or don't know the employers or have a connection, how do we put those folks together? And that's where Chris and Heidi and others spend a lot of time. In some cases, you're playing matchmaker a little bit because people have limitations on their geographical area that they can work. And so you're not just finding an employer, you're trying to find somebody that's close to their house or aligns to the skills and interests that they have. They want to work as a pipe fitter, welding that way, or they want to do more manufacturing because their hours are more controlled and they're not traveling for work. And all those things, that's what we tried to work on. So, and then the other critical piece for us was really getting to a place where we could have a public-private partnership. We couldn't have done it by ourselves. As a small college, it's really tough to capitalize certain things because we just don't have as many resources as bigger schools do, or our funding models set up in a manner. And so we went out and we raised a bunch of private funds to help put the lab together. And so that also gave us more control over when we could offer programming, where we could offer it. It's a mobile facility. And so that was just another one of those things that led to success for folks. So, and like I said, we just raised those private funds and we're able to open up our lab here last August. So you see a couple pictures of that. Okay. So just a couple key components, and I just want folks to know that there's a lot of ways to address challenges in our region. And so whether you're in the room as somebody that works in the public sector, or the employer, or you work with employers, or we're recruiting businesses, we maybe don't have all the resources that Hennepin County does or Duluth does and some of those places, but there's plenty of stuff in our region that I think if we put it together, leverage those resources, we can make that happen. Some of those lessons that we learned, and I think are keys to that, is you're thinking about how can we resolve this issue, or we don't have enough nurses, and First Light's looking to expand, or we don't have enough whatever, construction trades. There's things like apprenticeships that were talked about today. There's a lot of ways to do it, but it's really critical leveraging those people that have expertise and letting them be experts in their area and not trying to be everything. Transportation's not our deal, so we brought in those folks that could, or CMJTS, there were certain services or resources that we needed. And then obviously making sure that students can understand that when you start off, or people, if you start in an apprenticeship program, that's not the end, that's just the start. Or if you're taking an hour-based certificate, how does that lead to something that maybe leads to a 2-year degree, or you want to get into leadership or management capacities down the road. So I think it's important to let folks know that, and again, those are things either we can help with, or a lot of people in this room I know are already working on some of that. So, go ahead, Mark, on the next one. I think is that the last one on there. Yeah. So the next part that we wanted. So that's our experience and our journey with the women in welding. And like I said, we've gotten a lot of recognition around the state on it. People have wondered again, how were you so successful with that non-traditional career path for folks? Is this something we could apply in some other ways? But really, as I talked about, the other two critical components are going to be the employer and obviously the participants. And so we've got a couple folks here today, and I think that first Rose is going to talk from NorthPost and talk about their experiences in workforce development.
Good afternoon. It is afternoon. Yes, as he mentioned, my name is Rose Ryan, and my son and I own NorthPost Incorporated. It's metal products start to finish. And when business was good, or economy was good, it was a little more difficult finding the really talented workers. Then the economy dumped, and so even our good workers were off going to other jobs. And then business picked up again, and you could not find, for the life of you, a welder. No matter what you offered, was not enough. They were going to the cities to get the $26 to $30 an hour jobs. So I went to Rebecca, and I said, help. What am I going to do here? We were shooting overtime, and just not getting our business out the door like we wanted to. So she introduced me to Chris. I said, well, this program might be something that you could be interested in. So Chris came out, we talked about the Women in Welding program, and we actually interviewed 2 of the students to work part-time for us. Well, one of them just didn't quite fit what in our type of a business, and the other one that we wanted to hire decided to go to work full-time, or go to school full-time in the HVAC program. So again, I thought, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Tears coming, and then all of a sudden we had this young lady pop to our door, say, do you have any welding jobs open? Oh my goodness. So we did interview her and give her a welding test, and oh my goodness sakes, she passed with flying colors. We said, okay, you're hired. So it was just, she came from Pine Tech, and not from the Women's in Welding program, but from don't, 2012 general class. So it was heaven sent. And so I would like to pass in flying colors to this young lady and have her tell you her story as to how does she get to hers. One thing before I turn it over to her, I'd like to say that businesses, please take advantage of Rebecca's skills and getting you help, because we, as a business owner, did not even know that those were available to us. So there is a lot of stuff. We have taken advantage of the on-the-job training, dislocated workers, and now we're looking at the incumbent worker plan. So please do that. Here is Keeli Johnson.
Well, my name is Keeli. I found my love for welding in high school. I was a senior, and my schedule was all jacked up. They were trying to get me to take the same math class I took. They had like craftsman scrapbooking. I said, screw this. So I went home and I told my dad. I'm like, hey, Dad, you need to teach me how to weld, because he's been a welder forever. And he's like, yeah, sure. So we go out in the garage, we get a helmet, and he teaches me stick welding, and I liked it a lot. So I took it in high school in Mora. And then after high school, I went to the Pine Technical College, and 120 hours later, I was out the door. I had Denny Long for a teacher. He was awesome. And it was kind of neat, because I was the only girl in the class, too. So, like, all the guys were like, oh, that's cool, you know, and everyone got along. So, I mean, it's not even that scary if you're by yourself. So, so yeah, I learned how to TIG weld and stuff. And then I went to tram manufacturing for a month, and then DECA for 3 years, and Flow International, too. I drove all the way up there to do aluminum welding, which I really like. It was a lot of fun. And then the drive got to be way too much, so I knocked on NorthPost and said, hey, you guys hiring? And, yep. So, and I learned, you know, like different places too. You can learn a lot in schools, but there's like, between the businesses that I went to, you learned a lot. Like between like job processes, you could read different blueprints. There was like even jigging up stuff, you know, like making stuff. There's different techniques, and that was actually really cool, because they don't really teach how to actually jig in the Pine Tech College, but I mean, they teach you how to weld, so that gets you out the door real good. But yeah, so it was nice. I liked the schools and stuff, but yeah, you learned a lot just working too, so that makes it a lot of fun. So yeah.
So Keeli, can I ask you a question? So as somebody that was a graduate of Mora, attended Pine Technical and Community College, so you had some family, it sounds like somebody in your family that was a welder, at least was interested in that. And do you think that was the biggest influence on you, or?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Because I always watched my dad out in the garage playing with it and stuff,
Yeah.
so I'm like, I want to try it too.
And then when you were thinking about employment, I mean, you wanted to stay in the region, it sounds like, or stay in the community, and
Yeah, because
It's-
I don't want to drive to the cities, and yeah, so I think it's nice being around the area, closer to home.
And so how did you connect with your employers? You started off at Tram, it sounds like,
Yep.
right away. And so just literally applied, or you knew somebody, or?
I just walked in the door and asked them too, and they said, yeah, sure, and that was it.
All right. Best salesperson ever right
Right.
there. You just walk in, so, but good.
Yeah.
So anything from your experience, like, did you have exposure to any of that stuff in high school, or anything, take any of the, I know we've got some of our instructors from the high school.
Yeah.
And for full disclosure, Brent wasn't there in 2012, and I know we got school
Right.
board members, so.
Well, it was like, from what I've been hearing, it's a lot different, because like back then they had, you know, like the old school booths and stuff with the stick welder and the MIG welder in there, so you just sit in there and buzz around. And then they had the oxyacetylene, which was actually really run down and dangerous, because it like there only like 3 of them worked, and you didn't know if it was going to blow up or not. But then I guess they got rid of that. So
Brent,
So-
you've got some school board members here. You might need to put in a budget request. So I know Ethan's here and Bob. So if you see a capital request coming in,
right,
yeah.
because yeah, they didn't have a TIG welder, and they just started getting aluminum MIG in there, and we didn't really have a chance to play with it because it
Yeah.
was so limited.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's neat to hear that they're incorporating more of it, because TIG welding is super huge right now, too. If they can get more of that going, that's where a lot of the money's at for, you know. And it's actually a lot more fun, too, because you're actually melting the metal, and it's pretty cool.
So you're going to stay in manufacturing,
Mm-hmm.
assuming most likely welding, or are you going back? I mean, have you been taking additional training or anything in your career, or is there?
Not since Pine Tech, no, I've just been working.
Okay, good. Well, it's a great story, so thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
And come back to Pine anytime you want. So
Okay.
there's, like I said, but she's a great. Go ahead. Yeah, so good job. Because Keely's like the example, you know. She had somebody that influenced her, had a little exposure to it in high school. You know, there was a college in the region that she could take advantage of. It started off in the hour-based. You know, maybe someday now that we have a credit-based, comes back and takes night classes or does whatever, and is benefiting an important local employer for us. So thank you for sharing that. And next, we're going to segue a little bit here as I'm watching the time, and the goal of our session was to really share these examples and meet the real people that are participating or benefiting from it. And there's a lot going on in our region, like I said. We work very closely as a college with a lot of regional high schools, and we've had a lot of successes. We just this week had a ribbon cutting for a new healthcare center or training space that we opened up at the high school in partnership, and it was a collaborative effort, and we're going to talk more about that. But it is finding those pathways for folks, and again, getting the right skills with the right employers in our region. So we've got some folks with us that are going to share a little bit about that. So Diane Anderson Sibley, who is an expert in the healthcare field and trainings, and she can give you a little bit more of her background, but is now working at Pine Technical and Community College, and Brent Nelson, our high school principal here, and Laura Schultz. And so we're going to get to meet somebody else that went through just recently graduated from the program and also from our area high school. Just one of the pieces, and this goes into that pathways. So we talked to Keely. You heard earlier things like apprenticeship programs. You know, learning can come in a lot of different ways. It's not just at colleges. There's, for years and years, 100 years, things like apprenticeships was the way that people learned, and that's really important. And it's a great career path. You can get into the trades areas and make really good money and have a great experience. You can come to college right out of high school, or our average age is 28. Most people don't. They come after they've been doing something else, or they're looking to upskill a little bit from their current capacity. But there's always a lot of discussion around the schools, and we've got one of the bigger high schools here in Mora, and I know not everybody here is from Mora, but we have a collection of very small schools. You take somebody like Ogilvie that I think is graduating about 40 students this year, and we probably have about 140 in Mora this year, roughly around there. So all schools are different, and all of our communities are different. But one of the ways that we engage folks, or we try to engage folks into these areas and work in partnership as a college, is there's statistics that show that the sooner students get an opportunity to participate in college, there's more likelihood that they will attend college. And college meaning a technical program, a community college, university, but just college. And so that's always an important opportunity. Now that stuff costs money, and you got to figure schedules and different systems. Distance is an issue, and Mark, who's here, is an expert at this as well in our East Central Minnesota Cable Cooperative, or ECMEC, that works in this, and we beam things out of our campus out to a lot of the high schools. So that's how some of us took our foreign language courses and things like that. But I just wanted to do a little bit of defining, because these words get thrown around, and as we're thinking about ways to do these partnerships, it impacts on how we do it. So there's everything, and I use the term college in the schools. Now I know if you're in the high school setting, or there's other colleges that use the term a little bit differently, but generally when we talk about college in the schools, it falls into different ways. So we have what PSEO, or post-secondary education options. So maybe there's a Mora student that comes over and takes one of our auto classes, or signs up for one of our machine tooling classes, or things like that. They come over in the morning or the afternoon. There are examples where we do those inside of the high school. So East Central High School actually offers an automotive program, part of our program, college level, at their high school in the afternoons. Their students don't leave the building. Our instructor drives up there and does that. So again, a lot of different ways to do it. Every district is a little different. Concurrent enrollment, which is where, in this case, we would have a high school instructor, so maybe a biology teacher at the high school teaching a Pine Technical and Community College biology class. They meet our standards for credentialing and obviously their high school licensure requirements. So, but that is really, we work with that teacher, but they're really delivering our curriculum, but they're an employee of that district. ITV we talked about, where we're sending out that interactive television, and that's been going on for a long time. I took my senior year, that's where I got my foreign language courses in the town that I grew up in. So There's contracts. Sometimes schools just hire us, like I said, East Central, they'll have us come in and just bring our instructor and our stuff and offer those courses there on site. We talked about youth apprenticeship pathways for students, getting, was talked about before about getting students in high school into some sort of a youth apprenticeship experience. That's done through the Department of Labor and Industry in partnership with the high schools and local employers. So there's just a lot of different ways that it can work, but it's a really important tool, and I think that both the K-12, the districts, and the colleges are still figuring out the best ways to do that. And I'm excited because some things we got going on in Mora and across the region. I think we're doing more and more of this. The system is hard, and I think all of us just realize that, funding and financing hasn't really aligned itself to support sometimes those endeavors, that it does impact. And when you've got a small school district, if they lose 10 kids a day out of that building, that's serious stuff. And so it's a challenge for districts and colleges trying to figure all that out, but we're working on it, and I think that people are focused on the best interest of the students. And getting folks like Keeli, whether they're in high school, and we're going to talk with Laura in a second, how can we get more people to have some of those experiences to connect to it, and maybe pursue that career. So we will. We think it helps. We think it helps them understand how to get into those careers. They learn that while they're taking courses, or they come over and in some cases, I met a student this week in Mora when we were doing a ribbon cutting for this healthcare training space or training center, and she didn't know if she wanted to go into nursing. She kind of did, but she's taking a CNA class right now, and before spending 2 years in a nursing program or a year accumulating debt, doing all that, she was getting exposure to that. And I thought that was really smart on her part, and that's just as important experience for that student and for our community, that she can quickly figure out that, this isn't for me. I don't want to do that type of work the rest of my life. I want to do something else, and we can get her started on that. So I'm going to segue over to Diane Anderson-Sibley next. And like I said, Diane can give you a little bit about her background. She's worked in the private sector in healthcare and has worked in education for a long time. But one of the things that we talk about in healthcare, or especially in healthcare, in our programming, is these stackable credentials and pathways, and what does it take to be an RN, and what does that look like? So Diane, you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure, yeah, so I've been a nurse for 27 years, and the last 10 years I've spent most of my time in the college system. I worked for Anoka Ramsey for 6 years.
Good, yeah.
Then I went off to Central Care for a couple, and when I came back into the college system, I wanted to come to Pine. I'm pretty passionate about the Mora area. I have done training here in the past, usually in partnership with facilities first, but what I'm finding is partnering with the high school first is probably the smartest way to proceed, and certainly a nursing assistant credential can be a great segue into any healthcare pathway. A lot of people think of the traditional pathway, okay, I'm going to be a nursing assistant, then I'm going to be an LPN, then I'm going to be an RN. We have, throughout the college system, many physician assistant students and pre-med students. They have to have care hours. And so we actually see probably almost as many of those types of folks in the college system getting a CNA to fulfill that requirement. Also, we get a lot of therapy, pre-physical therapy, occupational therapy students. And even Kent Hansen, who was here this morning, started his career as a radiology technician and was a teacher. And he said he could always tell when his students were nursing assistants first, because they just knew how to deal with people. And so it's just a great way to get your feet wet, figure out, is healthcare for you? Where in healthcare might I go? And it just helps you learn to effectively deal with patients. And then some people will take like a nursing assistant credential and combine it with other credentials like an EMT. If you're an emergency medical technician and a CNA, you can be an ER tech. Or a lot of dialysis technicians are required to be nursing assistants first. So, and then of course, I think we have 5 Min-State colleges who have retained the nursing mobility track. A lot of our colleges went to the main curriculum for our registered nursing programs, which kind of eliminates the LPN to RN mobility. St. Cloud Tech is one of the colleges that has retained the mobility track, and I'm glad to say that Pine has also. So our students at Pine Tech become a nursing assistant first, then they move on to LPN, then they move on to RN, and that's where I had started. I was a young single mom and had to get on my feet fast, and so I was an LPN first, so I could make a livable wage while I worked on my RN. So did you want me to talk about the program at all at the high school?
Yeah,
Or?
yeah, and then
Okay.
Brent, that's a good, and then we'll.
Or do you want Brent to talk about that?
You can introduce the background and kind
Okay.
of where it started, or kind of how that dialogue started, so.
Okay, well, yeah, that was on November 15th was our first conversation. Did you realize that? November 15th was the first time we sat down and talked. And we wanted nursing assistant training at the Mora High School. And there were a lot of barriers. We knew transportation was going to be a barrier. We knew money was going to be a barrier. It costs about $18,000 to come up with the equipment to accommodate 10 nursing assistant students. Funding, tuition, and fees was going to be a barrier, and so we just started digging into the community. We reached out to St. Clair in Eastwood. The director of nursing and administrator donated about $3,000 worth of equipment. I left my office, like Dan would be proud of over there. I left my office to make the rounds of the workforce centers one day, and lo and behold, I ran into Diane Ristamaki at Central Minnesota Jobs and Training, and she said, oh my gosh, you're doing this, you got to check in with us, we have funding. So they're funding 8 of the 10 students. Who else? I mean, it's kind of...
ECMEC.
Yeah.
ECMEC,
Yeah,
yep.
ECMEC.
Well, we've applied for a mini grant through ECMEC to hopefully help us with the funding of the remaining 2 students and just some of the remaining equipment. So
Yeah.
anyway, it's taken a village.
Yeah, Brent, you want to jump off from there, talk more about the experience with the high school, and maybe a little bit more of the background, and maybe where this thing came up even before November?
Yeah, hi, I'm Brent Nelson. One thing that gives me chills is thinking about how many players came together to make this happen. You mentioned some of them just now, and I can't really take any credit for this because from day one it was Pine was able to send staff to Mora High School. I mean, how nice is that? Our students don't have to travel. Diane, she showed up with a horse trailer to help us move beds from that we're borrowing from Pine over to Mora High School. We had, Mark Johnson, the ECMEC, they funded some of our students to make this possible. CJ, Central Minnesota Jobs Training Services, they funded, I think, 7 of our students. They came to our school and met with our students, checked to see if they met certain criteria. It was a very easy process. I would recommend this to any high school. St. Clair, Diane took me to St. Clair. We met with their administrator and their director of nursing. I learned a lot. One thing that I think students are excited about is that it's such a pipeline to new careers. You think about maybe as a young student, I'm looking at you two, maybe being an RN sounds really intimidating, but if you were a CNA in high school and you kind of get to see what LPNs do and TMAs do and RNs do, then that next step just is that much easier. I was talking to some students the other day and they said they were making about $10 an hour. And when we met with George Paulson at St. Clair, he said CNAs start at $14.03 right here in Mora, Minnesota. They take another little class and they become a TMA, and they go from $14.03 to $15.03. The LPN was $18.56, RN $26.85. These are all starting at. And I think that's exciting for students to think, I could stay right here in Mora and I could make a livable wage. So, yeah, we're really blessed to have this opportunity, and I can't believe how much has happened since November. We actually have 2 classes. We have a Healthcare Academy class that is through Pine Technical and Community College also. It's offered over ITV. And they were great because they packaged it just how we needed it. It offers 4 different classes, and it's throughout the whole year. Medical dosages, medical terminology, Med Careers 1 and 2. Those are the classes, and students are getting college credit, and they're staying in our building, and that's huge for us.
So Brent, talk about that a little bit more, or I ask you to just go into a little bit more, backing up a little bit, probably less than a year ago, we'd gotten approached in the community by a school board member who happens to be here actually, just said, hey, we need more CNAs, we need more, which every community needs more CNAs. I mean, there's facilities in this state, and Diane can talk at length at this, that literally are not able to staff on a daily basis, or they're putting their employees in a position that if you don't work overtime, like we don't know what we're going to do.
Can I add something there,
Yeah,
Joe?
go ahead.
When we were meeting with George from St. Clair, he said that Walker had a nursing home, Walker, Minnesota, and you think about how nice that is to be able to grow old in your community and stay in your little town. They closed the nursing home. So those people aren't allowed to be in their town anymore. They're going somewhere else. He said Redwood Falls is probably already happened. They're closing theirs. So,
and you can imagine, both from an economic development, these are good employers in our community, and on that human development side and care side is just like you said, is the distance you create between your loved ones and those folks in that facility. People visit them less, something that's important to their care and their in some cases the end of their life is if we have to ship them to Blaine to a long-term care facility. Go ahead, Diane.
Can I add just one more thing? I want to say about 5 years ago when I was working for a different college, we had did some training up here, but it was for St. Clair because they had to shut down the transitional care unit because they didn't have the bodies to staff it.
Yeah, it's very serious, but this is an idea where, as a region, and it's an example of where an idea comes in, we couldn't solve the problem because it really needed to be in Mora. Of course, we don't have a facility here. We have one in Pine City, so we connect. The high school's got access to students, and there's eager minds and willing participants, and so, but they didn't have the equipment or the clinical sites, and so we just had to put it all together. And I think that's what was really unique about this is it was an idea that started, frankly, not that long ago, and sometimes in big organizations, these things just kind of percolate and never really get done. But this one did. And Brent, I want you to touch a little bit here on the participants in the program. So it was a high demand, but talk more about that.
yeah. So first of all, we're not a huge high school. Right now we have 3 different opportunities for students to get involved in healthcare careers. The first one is that Healthcare Academy. So that's an ITV class. Those students, for the most part, they had to meet criteria. If they're a senior, they have to be in the top half of their class. If they're juniors, they have to be in the top third of their class. So it's kind of hitting that top tier group of students. And that's looking at a TV screen. So it's not hands-on. It's still a great opportunity, and that's through Pine. We're lucky to have that. Through First Light, this is my 7th year here, and I know we've had it longer than that, but we have a health career rotation where we send students to go and shadow. And it is such a good opportunity, and we've been blessed to have it grow. When I first got here, it was only 6 students that could take part in this, and now we've grown it to where we added a nursing home, so there's 7 students, and we decided to go both semesters now. So 14 students each year at Mora High School are allowed to get exposed to 7 different healthcare careers, 6 of them at First Light, and 1 of them, I believe, at Eastwood. But then this last one that Mr. Mulford is talking about, that's the class we just started here a couple weeks ago. And what's really unique about that is half of the 10 students, we had to go with the number 10, and that's because of space, because of staffing. I believe once we hit 11, we had to have another teacher. Is that right? So our hands were tied. We had 25 students interested, and that created kind of a tough decision because we had to decide, do we want to start with seniors and work our way down? Do we want to start with we could go as young as sophomores. You can be 16 and work this job. And that was a tough decision for us. One reason that would be nice to go with sophomores is, hey, let's face it, we can keep them in Mora. They can be a workforce in our community for a couple years before they maybe leave Mora. The reason we decided to go with seniors is because we felt like it was a game changer. When I got a chance to interview these 10 students, you could feel the passion. And by not letting them have that opportunity before they left here, that would have been a disservice, I believe. So we decided this is going to change our lives. So we went with 10 seniors. We had an application process, an interview process, and that helped us make our decision. But when I talk about who those 10 students are, I'll say about half of them are from our regular mainstream high school, when you think of Mora High School. The other half, they're in our area learning center. They're students that aren't that top group academically, like that are taking the ITV course. So we've got mothers, it's just a really good group that we wanted to hit.
Yeah, and you can see as Mr. Nelson was talking about that, in that high school course, you've got a whole spectrum of career paths and journeys that are awaiting these students as they get done. But they're all getting the opportunity, they'll have that, assuming they all pass their exam and stuff, but they'll have that in their pocket. And like you said, whatever that journey is, you want to work. And two of the students I talked to this week at the open house that we had, one was going to St. Ben's and one was going to St. Scholastica, really, really high-end, nice universities. But they were going to work as CNAs, so they got a 15 plus. I mean, I don't know what they pay in St. Cloud or Duluth, but really good college job. 4 years of experience, and they wanted to be RNs. That was their path. And so they'll have 4 years of medical experience. They'll be phenomenal RNs when they get out there. They're just not going to be a book RN. They're going to be somebody that's going to be on the ground working, making good money, probably getting benefits if they need it, and some retirement and some of those things. So it's a great way. They'll get tuition reimbursement, good chance, and some of those things along the way. For some folks, they're going to go work as a CNA when they graduate from high school, and that's awesome. If that's their path, they're going to make a good wage, and maybe somewhere down the road they'll come back in and see us as an LPN and continue on in their journey in that. So, but the exposure they got in high school, excuse me, was really important for them. And so I think these partnerships, and again, we couldn't do what the high school did, we couldn't do what St. Clair's did, or we all just pieced it together and were able to deliver it for our community and for a long time to come. So Laura Schultz is the next person I want to bring into the conversation. We talked to Keeli in her path as she got done with high school, and Laura is somebody that I won't tell your background. She could tell you more about why she got into nursing and what her path was, but she's the type of person that we're interested in connecting with. And so, Laura, you want to talk about that?
Hi, I'm Laura. I graduated from Mora High School in 2017, and I just recently graduated from the LPN program at Pine Tech. While in high school, I actually started at Pine Tech the day after I graduated, so no break at all.
That's good.
I took my nursing assistant class during that summer that I had graduated after high school. During high school, I did take the Med Careers 1 and 2, which was awesome. It helps kind of solidify what you want to do. And when I was I was shadowing an LPN there, that's when I knew I wanted to do that. I took summer courses, fall courses, and started the LPN program in the spring. And I worked at Eastwood, actually, through that whole time. I did not work this last fall semester because classes were really hard. And then I was pinned in December, and then the graduation ceremony is in May. And then I also take boards in a couple weeks. So I'm really excited. And then I plan on working at First Light after that, and then I am really planning on going back for the RN program.
Good. Yeah. So Laura's a great example, and as we talk about this, that time goes by fast, and you can see you start off as a CNA and move into that, and she's going to be successful. We know on her boards we have the highest pass rates, and they're near the highest in the state. So she's prepared for those, and we'll hopefully stay in the region. That's the plan, is to stay here and support that. And whether you work in long-term care facility or at First Light or whatever the other options are, so that's important. As you heard from an employer today, and obviously participants in the program and educators, those of us on that side of it, is you could see everybody's got a different reason for doing what they're doing. And the critical part for us, I think, to get back to what our subject was, which is, the workforce shortage solutions, is it's meeting people where they are. And that's not making everybody go into one pathway or, at one time in their life. they're just not ready at some point. And so all of us, whether it's CMJTS and providing support or the school opening the doors up to get courses on the books there and those opportunities, I think that's where it works the best for a region. There's a lot going on up in this area, and like I said, we might not be the most populated or the wealthiest region in the state of Minnesota, or we didn't get the mines and some of those other natural resource pockets across the state, but I wouldn't trade this for anybody either, because I do think that people in this region get it. I benefit every day from working with the people around here, that people are creative and putting it together, and whether it's in Pine County or here in Kanabec County or Mille Lacs, Isani, it seems like people are figuring it out. So we appreciate and respect all of our employers that are here, and those of us that try to help them, we take that to work with us each day. But the last thing that I wanted to just touch on that's going on at the college around in this area, and we'll have a couple minutes for if there's a question or two, but is we got some support from a local foundation, and we just started off a program that we're calling the Kickstart program, and so it's in motion right now. And another pathway that we're trying to create, or an opportunity for folks to address the workforce in East Central. It covers 9 area high schools. So without naming them all, basically starting at Willow River over to Isle, Ogilvie, Mora is included, Bram, Pine City, Hinckley, Finlayson, and so North Branch is on the south end of it. Any student that is eligible for free or reduced lunch this year, any senior, can go to Pine next year for free, 1-year scholarship plus $1,000 stipend. So if you've got people in your region, you've got industries that you're worried about, this is a way for us to get more people off the sidelines and into whatever career path they want to go that best suits them. But whether we've got the right programs, but they can at least be able to afford to go through their freshman year and get their feet underneath them and get a kickstart to their opportunities. So it's unique. Nobody else in the state's doing something this kind of wide, and so we're working closely with the high schools to get that word out, and we think again it's going to help produce more welders and nurses and CNAs and all the above. So with that, we got a couple minutes before lunch. Any questions? Or Heidi, starting there.
Yeah. I knew I wanted to be somewhere in the healthcare field before that class. I even took that class. I have 2 aunts that are nurses, and I knew I have a passion for kids, so I knew I kind of leaned towards doing something with kids. But then after I took the class at the high school, I knew I wanted to just be an LPN. Yes.
Rick, you had a question? And there's one.
No, I have a comment.
Oh.
And that's, I worked for Congressman Nolan when the Women in Welding program was being developed, and watching Chris's passion working with these, there were a lot of them, as you mentioned, they were women that had kids, they might have been a single mom, and she bent over backwards to make sure that they could attend, and there was child care for the women that participated, and then Joe's passion to make sure they got that trailer. And I tell you, I got to run some beads in that trailer, and that was pretty cool. It was a nice machine. But just to see that, you guys found the problem and you found the solution, and I just give you kudos and hats off. Really, one, I spoke to you in graduation. It was really moving for me to see these people that, they're not going to be flipping burgers at McDonald's. They're going to have a career.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing about McDonald's. I mean, they're going to have a
Yeah.
career.
We like to. Maybe one more question. I'm just watching the clock on lunch. Doyle?
You could take a step back and think about your classmates. Is there a change in perceptions of what life is going to be like after high school? Is there has the focus changed at all in your perception? I mean, obviously you're 2 individuals that are driven. But if you wanted to take a step back, what do we need to do to
'cause in high school, they didn't offer any PSEO classes or P, whatever that word is, for welding. It's all nurses and stuff, which is cool, but they're like, I was in the work class too, and even they were kind of boggled about it. Like even there was like another kid that wanted to be a truck driver, and there's no program to help fund the different trades as much, so it's kind of tough there. It'd be cool if they could incorporate that, and that might help drive people more into wanting to do it, because it's kind of, yeah, the classes are cheap, but it only funds like 2 to 4 year colleges, and we're kind of wondering about that. And
So in other words, it needs to be more broad-based.
yeah, a little more open, and that'd be cool. And that actually might drive more people into the trades, or even construction trades, or anything, It might help boost that.
I love what the high school is doing now, like having the CNA program at the school. Like, I didn't ever have the chance to, I didn't have the time, I didn't have the money, because I was always in other high school sports. So what they're doing today is huge, and it's really good. I like it.
So we're still getting set up for lunch, I guess. We still another. Okay, so thank you for being here today. Thank you for those folks that have supported all these initiatives and given us a chance to talk about it today. Oh, I'm sorry. One more question here. Oh, hi, Terry.
This last semester, I had a lot of people that really wanted to stay around the area because they already had their houses built in an area, and their families were around there, so they didn't really want to expand and go to the cities.
A lot of the people I've worked with, I know a lot of them want to go to the cities, so it's kind of weird that way too. That's why I drove north instead of going south for better money, because I didn't want to do the stoplights and the people. So, yeah, I know a lot of people, they'll still live here, but then they go south anyway, so.
So, yeah, great question. Yeah, that youth retention is a critical part across the rural areas, but all right. Mr. Doyle?
I believe dinner's on. So again, in about a half hour, we'll have our ending person talk about a call to action. So let's grab some lunch and eat, and then we'll have that. Okay, thank you.